The next thing I want to talk about is exporting your slides. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I think that this is important to know because this is part of what's going to unlock our creativity in terms of how we use Keynote for things outside of just a straightforward presentation. I'll give you one example. One example is a company has a website, and on this website they have, on the home page of this site, they have what looks like a slide deck that just kind of rotates around. And in actuality, that is just a slide deck that's just rotating through. So this might be good for an intranet, a company's intranet website, which is just company information like upcoming events, healthcare information, employee of the month information, things like that. So the way we do that, if we switch over to my laptop, we'll go through a demo here of a couple of exporting options. This slide deck here, again, this is the one we've been working with, and in terms of content, we're not worried about that. We're just looking at exporting. So in this case, what we want to do is go to File, and let's Export to. And then these are some of the options that I wanted to highlight. Let's zoom in a little bit. So PDF allows us to take our Keynote slide deck and export that as a PDF. One thing to be aware of with PDF exporting is that it doesn't include the builds. Okay? No animations, no slide transitions. So if you've got a lot of objects on a slide and there's a lot of busy animations that make sense when you're playing that slideshow, that stuff isn't going to look like that as a PDF because the PDF is static by nature. PowerPoint, so iWork is very compatible with Microsoft Office. So if you work with a lot of people that have PowerPoint, this is where you can take a Keynote file and export that out as a PowerPoint file and then send that off to them for reviewing and things like that. So that will zip it up that way. Quicktime is an option where we can take a slide deck with certain animations and then export that out as a video that we can import into maybe another slide deck or some other option. HTML will actually take our slide deck and export that out as HTML code with a series of images. So this is really great for embedding into a website. So going back to the intranet site example, we want to export that out as an HTML series of files, and then we can send that to the webmaster, the web developer, and say, go ahead and plug this in to the intranet site, and they'll take all of that information and in most cases just drag and drop or just plop it in there, and they can make that work in the website, which is really nice. Images we can export out as certain images or as a series of images, sort of like a PDF. So that's more for preview purposes. And again, it doesn't include audio and video. And then, of course, we can export as an older version of Keynote, Keynote 09, which is the previous major version. So in this case, let me show you two options. Option one is PDF, because these are the two most common that people use. So PDF gives us a few tools here. We can choose to include presenter notes or not include presenter notes. Now, we haven't talked about presenter notes, but presenter notes are really handy for keeping track of your thoughts for when you're presenting. You can refer back to those. Maybe I'll touch on those if we have a second later on. So we can choose to include that or not. The print each stage of builds, if you think back at the example that I showed you before of my logo with all the little logos and the map in the background, that was made up of about 4 or 5 different builds. Okay, if we don't check this box, it's going to show one page for that one slide with all of the images on that page. If we choose this option, it will show us 4 or 5 pages, each one showing what the page looks like after each build. Okay, so that's if you're sending a PDF and you want people to see the builds and the animations, that would be a good option for that. You can also adjust the image quality. You can set a password to open if maybe it's something a little more sensitive like sales numbers. And some other options. So at this point, we'll just click on Next, and it will ask us for a location. So I'll just call this Test and Export. And now we have our exported PDF file. So if I click on that as a quick preview, we can see now that we have our slides in a PDF format. At this point, we email it. We're done with it. Okay? I would recommend deleting that. If the intent is to email to someone for a preview, I would go ahead and delete this file and clean that up, because otherwise you run the risk of having multiple versions available and it could be confusing. So we'll go ahead and send that to the trash can. The other one I wanted to show you was, actually let me show you 2 more. One is PowerPoint. So this one is pretty straightforward. We can require a password or not. We have some advanced options here where we can choose the specific format. If somebody has a specific version of PowerPoint that we are targeting this for, we can go ahead and choose that format, hit next, and you can imagine what happens next. It gives you a prompt for a file name, location, you save it, email it, and you're good. But the other one I wanted to highlight was the Quicktime. So with Quicktime, there are two different ways to export this out. And I use Quicktime when I want to send a preview to somebody. I don't need them to modify the content, but I want them to see all of the animations and the builds and the transitions. So this is a really good, it's sort of like a video version of PDF. It's a static version of your slide deck that they can't change. So the two options here is self-playing and slideshow recording. Self-playing is, it's going to automatically build those transitions and those builds on a certain schedule. So for example, in this case, it's going to transition from slide to slide to slide after 5 seconds. Whoops, sorry, let me move my mouse there. And it will automatically build the builds after 2 seconds. So that's nice because it's automatic and built in, but it doesn't give you a lot of control. So if you want more control, maybe this isn't the best option for that. But again, this is great for preview purposes, so you can see the animations in action and you can get a feel for what it will look like. You also have options in terms of formatting. So you can format it for 720 or 1080 are the two built-in options, or you can do custom. Now here's something that a lot of people don't think about, but you can actually use Keynote for making Instagram videos, videos that you want to include on your Twitter feed, lots of different options. And so you build a slide deck and you go through the process of exporting as a QuickTime file. You set all the parameters. Let's go ahead and save this one out as a 720p. And let's change this to 3 seconds after every slide and 1 second animations. And we'll hit next. And we'll call this one test as well. Go ahead and export that. Takes a little bit longer to export because it's actually going through and rendering all of that video. Let's minimize that and let's go ahead and double click on it and play it. So you've got the 1 second in between the builds. So this is simulating my clicking every second. Okay, so there's the 4 bullet points. We'll wait for the 3 seconds and it's going to go to the next slide. Wait 3 more seconds and it's going to go to the final slide. Okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah. That really, for a lot of people, that opens up a lot of capabilities with how you can use Keynote in so many more ways than just, I'm going to do this slide deck and now I'm going to get up and present that to my audience. But it really opens the door for a lot of really interesting and cool possibilities. Okay, so at this point, let's go ahead and delete this and let's open that file back up. Okay, so any questions on exporting that you guys might have?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay. Again, we talked earlier about how to reduce that file size. That's a consideration that you should make as you're working with others on that. You don't want to send files unnecessarily large, especially if you're working with big Photoshop files or big videos, which I tend to do a lot of video work in mine. They can, to Russ's point earlier, they can get really, really big very quickly.